All right, Rochelle.
Audio coming through okay?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Hello, and welcome to the Tainted Lands, Shadows of the City, Episode 5. My name is RJ Cresswell, and I'm the Dungeon Master for this game. Now that you know me, let's meet everyone else. Players, please take a moment, introduce yourselves, tell us what character you're playing tonight. And let's see, Jess, let's start with you tonight.
All right. I'm Jess. I play Wynn, the elf druid barbarian, who is very relieved after having had dinner with her parent, but now growing increasingly worried seeing that body. Does she know what kind of disease it is? I did ask you that, or I did say she was wondering that.
You did ask me that on Discord chat, and I didn't mean to ignore you. I meant to tell you, let's wait until we pick it up and answer that in game. Okay? So, yeah, again, sorry. Didn't mean to ignore you. But we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Now, Lewis.
Hey, my name's Lewis. I'll be playing as Wallace, who's a hill dwarf cleric. He's trying to wipe the ooze that bursts from that wee boil, then he hit it with his axe. Hopefully, I've not caught anything new added to the list. I need to probably go to a doctor. You stop bursting things and tasting unknown bodily fluids.
Yeah. Well, you did meet a doctor earlier in the previous session before that happened, so you know there is a doctor. Shondell.
Hello, I'm Shondell. I play Junie, who is a half wood elf fighter. And right now she's just both horrified and disgusted. Pretty much where she stands.
Okay, Kristen.
Hello, I'm Kristen. I'll be playing Toby, the Rock Gnome Warlock. Yeah, good times. I don't know.
All right, Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric. I play Sir Cadron, who is going to sound about half an octave sexier tonight because my voice is wrecked. So, yeah, I'm going to be getting steadily closer to an Nature Celebrate impression the longer I go, and it'll be real fun.
All right, then. Well, now that we've all introduced ourselves, let's talk about what happened last week. Your party began in a hidden room under the old import company. You ended up there by tracking an orcish assassin who attempted to kill Wallace after saying, "Ragnar sends his regards." Having slain the assassin and 3 creatures who vaguely resembled humans with rat faces and fur-covered skin, Wallace began interrogating one of the remaining rat creatures. From that interrogation, Wallace learned that Ragnar hired the rat creatures to shelter the assassin until his work was finished, and to make sure he had safe passage to the world's end afterwards. Learning this, Wallace decided to make an example of the rat creature, and attempted to gruesomely slay it. But Sir Kay intervened, placing Wallace under a sleep spell. Junie and Wynn attempted to stop the rat creature from fleeing, but it was too quick and escaped. When Wallace awoke from the spell, he was upset but dropped the matter after a few tense words. Before leaving the hidden room, Sir Kay discovered a locked chest and a finely crafted wooden box banded with gold and adorned with engravings. Toby, Wynn, and Junie left the hidden room before Wallace and Sir Kay, and they discovered that the old import shop was on fire. After that, everyone quickly left and returned to the Silver Pony, where you either rested and or received medical attention. Sir Kay and Wallace also discovered the chest held a suspiciously large amount of coin, and that the wooden box was actually a music box with a scarlet pillowed interior and an ivory dancer that twirled to a hauntingly familiar tune. The box also held 2 rings, one with an animal motif and one with a feather motif. Shortly thereafter, your party met in the hall outside of your rooms, and you descended the stairwell to the dining room where you were joined by Wynn's mother and father. Over dinner, you learned that Wynn's father had been researching the Hollow Man of Middlefish because several people had gone missing from Middlefish, Middlefish being the ward where Wynn grew up. He also told you that one person escaped and said she was almost abducted by the Hollow Man. After several drinks and a pleasant evening, you walked Wynn's parents out of the Silver Pony and watched them disappear into the distant darkness. Then you heard the slow and steady clop of hooves on the cobblestone. A lone rider approached, cloaked, as he passed by. As he passed by, he fell from his horse. His foot was caught in a stirrup, and the horse dragged him a ways before his foot fell loose, and he lay awkwardly on the ground. You all approached, and Wallace knelt down beside the body. He removed the hood of the cloak and saw that the man's skin was pallid and bloated with boils. Wallace touched one, and it burst, pus oozing down its cheek and onto the cobble. From the distance, you hear, "You there! Stop!" You look and see 2 guards approaching, beneath a swollen moon. You look back at the body and see its eyes open, dead and milky white. It grabs Wallace's hand and bites for 6 piercing damage.
Fuck.
And that's where we begin tonight. Lewis, please make a Constitution saving throw for Wallace. Then
God, here
Then tell me what you want to do. Everyone else roll initiative.
10 on that con save.
Did you say 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, I didn't roll a 1.
What'd you roll?
I rolled a 13, which is a 12.
Yay!
I rolled an 8 on it as well, by the way, but see how, how much of my hand did they bite? Is it like fingers, side of the hand?
Okay, so we had kind of established that, Wallace definitely pulled the cloak back and, he's kind of got a penchant for poking and prodding sort of disgusting things, So essentially what happened is this figure was on the ground. You saw that its face was all pallid and bloated with these boils, and just kind of instinctively, much as Wallace does, you just kind of reach down and not even hard, but just lightly touch one. Immediately it burst and just kind of it's on its cheek, and pus drips down, falls on the cobble. And from there, you hear in the distance, "You there, stop." You turn to look, and as you do, you see 2 guards kind of walking down the cobblestone street in night underneath this kind of swollen gibbous moon. And then you kind of glance back at the body that's on the ground beside you, and at that moment you see its eyes open, dead and milky white. Then it grabs your hand, and when it grabs your hand, it grabs with kind of this death grip. You try to pull away, but you can't immediately, and as it's holding your hand firm there, it just kind of bites in this area right here, clamps down really hard. I mean, you probably hear bone crack beneath its teeth, I imagine, as it hurts very, very much. Now that happened, how would Wallace react to that? Because essentially it took initiative. You're right there. I'm going to give you an opportunity to.
Yeah, I'm tapped out of spells, but Wallace would just he'd be probably screaming in pain at this point, especially if his hand's broken. I don't have any spells, so I'm just gonna put my hand deeper into its mouth, and I'm gonna try and rip out his tongue.
Alright, so essentially right now you can only take a reaction. So if you had some kind of spell you could react with, or some other thing that you could react with.
No.
Because it most certainly surprised you.
Yeah, then in that case, no, I'm just kind of gonna yell out in pain and kind of I don't know if any follow football, but it's just, I feel like Balotelli, why always me? Do you know what I mean? This is just becoming
Stop
quite
poking
desperate.
things.
Yeah,
Not
so
literally,
that's
just stop poking
Yeah,
things.
all the time. But anyway, I'm just gonna kind of scream.
Okay, alright, so you scream. Now, Eric, I know you've been kind of raising your hand over there and waiting. Did you have a question before we go on?
Yeah, actually, I do have a reaction I could pull off. Would that be allowed, or is this Just he can react because the creature is taking initiative on it.
Okay.
No, this is a surprise round, and you all are in this. I mean, you're right there. You're just not quite as close as he is. You're kind of standing up above the body, whereas he was kneeling beside it. So, if you have a plausible reaction, you can use it.
Cool. I'm gonna channel Divinity Rebuke the Violent. It
Okay.
needs to make a DC 14 Wisdom save, or it takes radiant damage equal to what it dealt to Wallace.
Oh wow. Okay. I rolled a natural 1, so
Sweet.
it takes
So
radiant damage equal to what was 6 points of damage, I believe.
Yeah.
All right.
So like, you basically watch like the bite happen. Wallace screams. Like he still gets bit, but then like from his wound, instead of blood, you just watch like the normal borealis light that Kay gives off just flash in the thing's face and kind of singe it a bit.
Okay. Give me just a second.
First blood. Well, not really, because it bit you, but you know.
Right. Okay.
I'm
all right.
definitely got C or something.
Yeah. So, you saw much like Wallace did. You looked at the guards, looked back to it, saw its eyes, saw it bite into Wallace. Wallace screamed, and immediately you just kind of like reacted with this rebuke the violent, and it's borealis, just kind of like seared it, and you see its flesh, kind of like around its mouth where it had bit, just kind of like begin to kind of like sizzle and crisp over as it burns. It's
Nice.
and it kind of makes a sound as it roughly cries out in pain. Now, anyone else have a reaction they could do this turn?
Oh, pretty sure we're tapped.
Okay.
I need to get.
All right. So, what is our initiative order? It's going to be the creature that's on the ground.
I rolled a dirty 20, so I'm going to assume that I'm first.
Okay.
I got
Well,
a 22.
Oh, okay, perfect. Because I just really want to go first.
I got an 8.
What's your total, Ginny?
Sorry.
Oh, dirty 20. Sorry. I think
Yeah,
yeah.
My bad.
My allergies are acting up.
Oh, I know that feeling. Wynn had an 8.
So did Wallace.
Who has the higher dexterity of you two? Because usually that determines who goes first.
I have a dex of 12.
Okay.
I have a dex of 14.
Okay, so just erasing this. When I don't go last for once. I had a 12. Okay, cool.
All right.
That's it. We're good.
so the creature that's on the ground took initiative, so it'll be going first, and then we'll resolve it in your initiative order after that. Now, Wallace, you remain there, right beside it, and as you're kind of like kneeling down beside it, it begins to kind of like crawl up to its knees and then pull itself up on you, and then as it does that, it just tries to like slam its fist into your face, as it's kind of like getting to its feet. So, you're not wearing armor right now, correct? What would your armor class be?
10. Because I'm not wearing armor.
Okay. Now, it slams into your face, and you take 5 points of bludgeoning damage.
Oh no. Right. I'm actually not that bad now.
Yes. Now, you need to give me an additional con save.
Oh, alright, okay. 8.
8?
Yeah.
All right. Eric, I believe that Shondell is up top from there.
Nope, it's Toby.
Oh, it's Toby. All right.
Yes.
All right.
He
What is-
does a little like like freak out, go into his turtle shell, but it's more he just casts mage armor on himself, like and then freak out. And kind of like as part of his movement or maybe a bonus action, he's just gonna take the pillowcase that he formed into an ascot and like kind of lift it up to cover his mouth.
Okay, all right then. So Toby sees all this stuff going on as the creature from the ground, this corpse lumbers to its feet, pulling itself up on Wallace, slamming his fist into its face, probably staggering Wallace back a little bit. Toby just kind of immediately jumps back, casts mage armor, and then pulls this thing up over his face, seeing how vile it is. Now, who's next?
That would be Junie.
All right.
Yes. All right. So, Junie is a couple. I'm gonna say like a foot or so away from the group because as soon as the pus started out of his cheek, she walked away to start throwing up.
So she's a little ways away. All right.
Yeah, she's got a weak stomach. We've established this. So I guess when she kind of turns to start like take the couple steps back to the group, she's gonna realize what's going on. And this thing's on the ground, right? Like
It was on the ground. It was lying on the ground. Wallace was over it, like kneeling over it, kind of. And then it began to it sat up, got to its knees, pulled itself and pushed itself up off of Wallace,
Okay, so
and then
it's
punched
standing
him.
now.
It's no longer on the ground. That's right.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, that's.
I keep hearing are these growl sounds from someone's
know.
mic. It's so amazing.
Sorry, I got Sirenscape going on over here. So.
Oh, nice.
That's probably either me or the hang, or like both of us kind of just growling, like, because I'm getting my.
Is yelling at Wallace considered an action?
I mean,
can-
it depends on how much you want to yell,
I just want to ask him like what he did, and, with very vulgar language, with lots of profanity.
All right. So you just kind of like start screaming at Wallace, in the streets. Now,
And
is that it?
No, but I shoot it now. But
no, I'll launch an arrow at it because now that I realize Wallace is bleeding.
Now, normally you would most certainly do that, but you just came from a very
We don't
lovely
have
dinner with
Oh right.
none of us have weapons.
Okay,
Wind's
well,
parents.
What's up my longsword?
I have a dagger. I always keep a dagger on me.
Okay. All right. Is there anything you would like to do with that dagger?
Take it out.
Okay.
It's kind of about it. Because I, without any weapons, I just kind of want to. Junie's gonna be methodical right now because she only has her dagger in her fists.
Okay. All right then.
Yeah, that's it.
So she just takes out her dagger and kind of like steps back sort of cautiously. Eric, who's next?
Yeah.
Me. So this is what it feels like to be above a 10 on initiative. I mean, Kay always has his sword at formal events, so he's just gonna draw the longsword and instead of attacking, he's gonna draw, post up, kind of like flank the thing with Wallace, and then he's gonna pop a divine sense to see if it's undead. That's his action.
Okay. All right. So he draws his sword, kind of like flanks the creature, the person, the corpse, whatever he believes it may be, and then just kind of like, his eyes glaze over, I guess, with a kind of like aurora, and he opens himself up to the divine and tries to see like a god might. And when he opens himself up, the creature definitely comes through foul and undead. So.
Okay, I'm just gonna call out, it's undead. Just go for it.
I'm gonna turn around and be like, "Do you think?"
That was pretty obvious, not gonna lie.
All right. Who's that take us to?
That would take us to Wallace first, and then wins.
Right, I'm gonna get my WWE moves out. Am I considered grappled by this one?
You're not grappled now.
I'm gonna German suplex it. I'm gonna like grab it from round his back, and I'm gonna like pick it up over my back and like slam it on it.
Okay. All right. Make an athletics roll.
Come on. Oh fuck. Natural 1.
You gotta roll that. Re-roll that because that's cocked. Okay. All right. So you attempt to like grab it and then suplex it over the top of you onto the ground, but you don't. Now give me a roll on percentile. Actually, just tell me high or low.
High.
Okay. What do you think happens as you just like grab this and you're going back like with as much force as you can, but your arms slip from it? What do you think happens as a result of that?
Oh, seeing as I rolled a natural 1, I'm gonna kind of like grab it round its waist, and I'm gonna go for the German suplex, and it's just gonna fall on top of me. Like I kind of like pick it up, but now it's just on top of me, and it's kind of like crushed me instead of me like flinging it. It fell on top of me instead of me actually like throwing it.
Sure. So essentially, you go to pull it back, you slip a little bit, grab onto its cloak, pull it down on top of you, and then like almost immediately its left hand goes around your throat and you are actually grappled now instead of
I'm
grappling.
screaming, pineapples, 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 pineapples.
All right.
My lord.
Jess, it is Wynn's turn.
All right. Yeah, having no weapons after dinner with the folks, she's going to actually I'll change what I was about to do and do Thorn Whip instead,
Okay.
considering Wallace's mess up there.
I'm gonna change my D20 that's gone in the
11 to
gym.
hit.
11 to hit. 11 will hit. Does it need to make any kind of saving throw?
No, it's just an attack roll. I don't think so. Let me double check while I roll damage. 4 damage.
All right.
It is piercing damage, and I pull the creature up to 10 feet closer to you, to myself.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pull the creature away from Wallace.
All right.
Oh wait, I'm 5th level total. That's a second d6, so 8 damage total.
8 damage. All right. Okay, all right. So you saw Wallace basically pull this thing on top of it. Its hand went immediately around Wallace's throat, and you kind of like lashed out with this thorn whip. Probably grabbed its hand that was around Wallace's throat and then just yanked it back, and it comes up off Wallace, and as you weren't too far away, so it's in pretty close proximity to you now. And that puts us back up to the top of the round as its turn. Now, I will mention that the 2 guards that were a distance away, you hear them yelling, "Stop! Stop! Halt!" But they're nowhere near you right now. They're just kind of like running as fast as they can to get here.
I can't be bothered with these cards right now.
So, they yell stop and halt. And then, I'm assuming your armor class is 10. Do you have a dexterity modifier or anything that can...
Oh, I have all kinds of modifiers.
Okay.
Barbarians, man.
That's
What
right.
you need? What you need?
That's
My
right.
armor class is still 16.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
I
I'm
forgot you were
armor
also a
defense.
barbarian there for a bit.
Yes.
But I have a natural 19. So,
Oh.
it is going to hit with a 23. So, you strike out with your whip, pull it towards you, and then it just kind of like pivots around with this, fist. And essentially like punches you, you know, kind of like right in the mouth, you know, for
The same hand that you grabbed with the whip is just like pulled it towards you and it just scalps you in the face.
for 7 points of damage.
For 7? Okay.
7 points of damage. Now I need a con save from you.
Of course you do.
Fail. My unknowns.
An 11.
An 11. Okay. Alright. And before we go on further, I noticed that Wiley Hobbit has joined us, so just wanted to say thank you very much for hanging out with us in chat for a bit tonight. We appreciate it. Now, I think that takes us to Toby. Toby had cast Mage Armor, pulled the pillowcase up over his face. What's he want to do now, Kristen?
Kind of like a gunslinger in the Wild West with this pillowcase over his face. He's just gonna do 2 pew pews with his Eldritch Blast. So
You got it.
what is my board for you?
The good, the bad, and the Toby.
Huh?
The good, the bad, and the Toby.
I like it. One is 18
18 hits.
to hit. Yeah. So that will be 8 points of damage.
Okay.
And the other one, I'm guessing not so much. That's 6 to hit.
Alright, yeah, that one does miss. Alright. So, you know,
Miss
Toby goes Wild West Gunslinger. You know, one of the Eldritch Blasts, you know, goes astray, but the other one, you know, nails it center mass, knocks it back a little bit. Now, I think that takes us to Junie.
Yep.
Yes.
Junie, you kind of cautiously stood there after drawing your dagger. What would you like to do now?
It's got, it still has Wallace grapple?
No.
Or
Essentially,
it's let him go and it's got wind.
it's not grappling wind, but it just turned around and like punched her right in the kisser, essentially, you know.
Pow, round the kisser.
Okay. Damn it. What do I want to do? Okay. I think I'm going to, because I have my maneuvers. I think I'm going to use one. I have yet to use one, so we'll see if this works or not. Strike with my dagger, or attempt to strike with my dagger, using precision attack. So I can add a D8, right? Yeah, D8 onto the attack roll, I think. Yeah, attack roll.
Okay. Alright, make your attack roll. Add a d8.
Oh, I lost it.
Should have had a D8.
Alright, so that's 19 to hit.
19 will most certainly hit.
It's a 6 damage.
6. Okay. Is that it for Junie this round?
Yeah. We'll yeah, for now.
Okay. So, you know, it's kind of turned around towards when, you know, Junie just kind of like comes up behind it and it just takes a moment and makes a carefully placed, slice with a dagger. You know, just kind of like goes across its back, you know. Now, takes us to Eric and Sir Kay.
First thing I'd like to do is, as a bonus action, Kay is going to put on his best scared noise and say, "Help, guys, we're being attacked!" And just like yell for them and say that. And then I'm completely contradict that and take 2 swings.
Okay.
So first up,
seems
is
legit.
an 8 plus. Sorry, character sheet time. With the longsword, 13 to hit.
13 will hit.
Oh, and I didn't say it ahead of time, so I'll roll a d8, but on the next hit, I'll go two-handed for the d10.
Okay.
So d8 plus, that's cocked. D8 plus 2. That is 9 points of damage on the first hit.
Okay.
And then on the second hit, to hit is 18. So, d10 this time for two-handed. And it is 5. Yes. So 7 points of damage on the second hit.
Okay.
And I'm just aiming for the legs to try and like knock this thing down and keep it. Not trying to do lethal because I don't know if it's still a. Oh wait, no, I know it's undead.
You do know it's undead, yes.
Yeah, I'd be aiming for the legs or center mass still to make it look like I'm not trying to kill it because I want the guards to help us.
Okay. Alright then. Well, on your turn, you yell, help! Guards, we're being attacked, and then immediately begin slicing at its body afterwards. Now, when you attack it, how do you imagine this looks as it falls? It's currently facing Wynn. Junie has just kind of like stepped up and sliced across its back with a dagger.
Basically, like, I'd hamstring it, and then flat of the blade, I'm just, like, clubbing it over the head, or, like, pommel striking it. So, it's going to kill it, but it's trying to be non-lethal, at least at an outward appearance.
Okay.
It's really faking non-lethal is what I'm going for.
Gotcha. Okay. Alright, well, you do that. And, you hamstring it. It kind of, like, falls to its knees, and then you, flatten the blade across, the back, or back of its head, or whatever. And it falls. And as it does, you kind of, like, look down at it briefly, and you see just kind of, like, the boils that are in its flesh. Many of them throughout combat have burst, and it's just kind of, like, oozing onto the ground where it lies. Now, almost immediately thereafter, it would have been Wynn's turn. So is there anything she would like to do before we potentially exit initiative? You know that there are a couple of guards running this way. As it's fallen kind of like face forward onto the cobblestone, you see, again, it was wearing this kind of like darker cloak. And as, it's fallen, the cloak is kind of like fallen away to one side. You see that there's a dagger sticking out of its back, kind of like between the ribs and the back there.
Oh. That's interesting. But Wynn's looking at the boils. Does it look like something she recognizes?
Give me a nature roll, but do it at disadvantage.
Not a medicine roll, since
sorry, medicine
is
is
an
what it should be.
herbalist.
Medicine. It should be medicine either way, but
Okay.
still at disadvantage.
Okay. A 13.
13's good enough. So you're kind of looking at it, and you've kind of heard of a disease, throughout your studies, quite literally called zombie rot. And this seems to be what it is. You've seen it described, these boils that ooze. It's a highly contagious disease. You've studied it before. And Wynn is pretty certain that this is probably what it is, especially given the fact that Sir Kay, called out that this is an undead creature, and it very much looks the part. When you saw it, you would have sworn yourself that it was dead upon the cobblestones before animating and attacking Lewis. So
Lovely.
yes. Now, what do you all wish to do? Because the guards are closing in. They're about 30 feet away at this point. Still lit.
I'm immediately one casting fairy fire and like lighting ourselves up for the guards so they can see us. Two, sheathing the longsword after wiping the blood off, and three, I roll the body over onto its back so they can see how screwed up it is, just with the foot.
Yeah.
All right.
Junie's putting away her dagger and then walking away to throw up yet again.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Toby's gonna wave his pillowcase like a white flag.
All right. And then is Lewis doing anything in particular?
Yeah, I'm gonna go up to Win who's like inspecting this, and I'm gonna be like, "Do you know what that is?"
I think I do. I could possibly be wrong, but it looks like zombie rot.
Well, that sounds pretty bad. And is that contagious?
Yes.
I'm not the only one that it touched. Is there a cure for zombie rot? Or if not, how long have I got?
RJ?
Is there a cure? You kind of know what it is. I'm not sure if you know that again. Given that you are familiar with the disease, you can give me a roll not at disadvantage this time, and just let me know what you've got on your medicine roll. Not at disadvantage, just straight
Okay.
roll plus medicine modifier.
23.
23 is great. All right. You would know that essentially if you could see a cleric, or someone who can heal diseases, that you could be cured of it.
Much like cleric.
If you can, cure diseases, then you could be healed of it. In addition to that, you know that if magical divine means aren't available, essentially you either get better from it or you die. And if you die from it, you're, not reborn, but reanimated as a zombie, essentially.
Well, shit.
Yeah, I relay that.
Yeah, and with your 23, you would also know that if you should happen to die prior to, being cured of this, you would still reanimate as a zombie. If that makes sense.
Oh,
Great.
So essentially, you could rest and over time potentially get better, or keep getting worse and kind of waste away until you die. But if you've not been cured of this, and something unfortunate should happen and you die, you reanimate as a zombie.
okay.
Okay.
Now, before anyone else says anything, Kristen, if you'll have Toby give me a history roll.
That is non-natural.
Non-natural 20? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not sure if you recall, but previously on Discord off stream, you and I have had a text conversation, and I had told you that a plague had hit Black Sands before. Toby definitely knows that. This is not the first time this has happened. Now, I don't know how much information you want me to share of that, but Toby definitely knows that Black Sands has fallen prey to plague before. This very plague.
Uh, so that's all. He just recognizes that it's something that has happened exactly like the plague before.
Yes. Do you want me to give you the entire context? Because it was a while ago that I think we had.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say Toby probably wouldn't remember that well
Okay.
either.
All right then. So essentially, Toby was familiar with this kind of older god, this older thing that had been worshipped once before, known as Akulumaitu, also known as the Dead Eater, also known as the Great Unfather. And essentially,
He's my pen.
Lewis, no
nope.
point writing any of this down. We don't get to know this in game.
Yeah, you don't know this. Yes.
Oh,
So,
but are you not?
so you know that people had worshipped this thing long ago, and essentially they practiced some ritualistic form of necrophagy, eating of the dead. But the way that they did it was they essentially fed bodies into the ocean, the maw. They kind of like bury people at sea from the shores. And they did that up until a point where, something happened and just like hundreds upon hundreds of corpses that had been fed out into the sea. They were fed out there because of a plague. They, just kind of like washed back up ashore and made the plague just much worse. So Toby is familiar with this history.
Okay. I'd say like after we find a spot like away from these guards, then he would share that information with everybody. I mean, would Junie be aware of that as well? Just because we were like kind of in the same town, same spot, or
That was a very Toby specific piece of information.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I mean,
That's not information Junie would seek out. So
yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, just kind of wanted to let you know that. So
Out of
you're all
character. Is Toby the guy that survived a horror movie at one point? Like is
Without
this your
even
sequel?
knowing it,
Is this
Yeah.
your sequel?
right.
totally oblivious.
Yeah, all of this was going on as Toby was in his workshop, crafting clockwork things.
He's like, I gotta get another tool, and there's like all these dead people around him.
Just slowly closes his door.
All
Yeah.
So that bit of information interrupted this. So the guards are approaching, quickly. They have, their swords drawn. And, I know that Sir Kay sheathed his blade. Junie put away her dagger and just kind of like stepped away and, retched upon the cobblestones. But, as they get closer, they don't come right up on you. They keep a distance. Their blades are drawn, their shields are raised. And, one of them, human, female, looks or points her sword at Sir Kay and unsheath your sword and kick it away from you. Throw it down and kick it away from you.
I have to roll for this. Yeah, I just draw the blade and I just take it and I just toss it at their feet. And then I just draw one of the dancing lights kind of behind or beside my head so they can see me and so that it'll catch light off the holy symbol I'm wearing. So they know hey, I'm at least kind of cool. Announcing I'm a cop, basically.
All right. Let's see if they notice that. All right. Now, as you see them, they've just kind of run over here, and you can tell that they're somewhat scared or nervous or something like that. And the woman who has her sword trained on Sir Kay. That's good. What is the meaning of this? You said you're being attacked.
It struck first. We watched it fall off its horse, and then we thought it was dead, and then it stood back up and bit my friend. And I'll have one of the other dancing lights like lower over the creature's body so they can see what it looks like in the dark.
Okay.
As soon as you do that, because Junie was just turning back,
Oh no.
she's gone again.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Be like, if this isn't proof enough that we didn't do anything, then I don't know what is. In between throwing up.
All right. And as you do that, the other guard that's with this human woman, also clearly a guard, is a half-orcish fellow. And when you lower the light above the body to expose this boil-covered flesh that's just kind of like oozing and seeping, he's just like, "Oh gods, what is that?"
That's an undead, and we just killed it again. Unfortunately, it sort of caused a bit of a ruckus. Sorry to bother you.
All right.
But we didn't kill it the first time.
Now,
Let that be known.
Yeah, would they have seen it just like fall off its horse? Is that why they were so close?
they were actually quite a ways down. It's just kind of like, actually, let me roll to see if they might have picked up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that they were just kind of like a couple of blocks down and away from you all, and they did see it fall, and then, observe what seemed to be like you all attacking this thing. It kind of like went right past you, and who knows when they looked, but all they saw was like it on the ground, the horse, trotting away, and you all over it, and then all of a sudden attacking, and it either possibly defending itself or being aggressor or whatever, So, anyway, you can see that they're both, somewhat confused, at this. And even though you're telling the truth, I want you to give me a persuasion roll.
Persuasion.
As you're trying to convince them of something that doesn't quite jibe with their notion of the way the world works.
14.
All right. I've only heard about these things before. Are you all alright?
Junie just puts up like thumbs up. I'm good.
You've heard of these things before. Care to fill us in, because none of us have seen something. Actually, we have seen dead people walk before, but not quite like that.
Yes, I don't know what I could tell you. I've heard, tales of the undead. Vampires and ghouls and whatnot. I've never seen anything like this in the streets of Black Sands before.
Yeah, this is a little different, I believe. Also, if I'm right about what exactly it is, pretty contagious. Could you get some clerics and probably someone to... I'm guessing the best way to dispose of it would be burning. Someone to burn the body.
And then at that point, you see both of their eyes go quite wide. And the half-orcish fellow, will look to you as he's backing away from the body. Contagious? What do you mean?
Well, exposure to this pus and stuff is contagious. It's a plague.
All right. At that point, both of them, backing a good ways away from your group and the body that's there, you know, they kind of like look at one another, and the woman keeps her sword trained on the lot of you and go nowhere. Stay here. And then kind of like immediately, almost after that, the half-orcish fellow, begins yelling, "Plague! Close the gates!" And he does that. He does that repeatedly. I just don't want to do it repeatedly.
I go pick up my long sword.
As they're backing away from you all.
If you get some clerics here, we can have it dealt with.
All right.
Cutting my hand off wouldn't save me with it.
I just lean over to Wallace and I just say, "I can cure you tomorrow morning. It's fine."
I'm gonna put my hand up to him just to wake him up. No, I'm gonna do it to Ginny actually, who's been basically thrown up, and as you whispered that to me, he was very, 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 very concerned, given the fact that, when it said it was contagious and whatnot, but now that he kind of knows that it's probably, maybe, hopefully going to be alright, depending, he's just going to start winding everyone up and kind of being like, with the, like you can imagine his hands probably filled with pus and swollen with like purple and teeth marks and that.
Right, and that's most certainly what it's like. So essentially these two guards have backed away, wide-eyed, nervous, and they've told you to stay there and don't leave. And then the orcish fellow begins, yelling, "Plague, close the gates." And then not long after that, you'll hear other cries of plague, close the gates, from further on in the city. And then eventually you'll hear like the ringing of bells, the kind of like chime and clatter of bells ring out across the city. And you hear, multiple instances in the distance of plague, being screamed, presumably by other guards or, whomever. Now,
I'm just gonna inspect the body because I'm immune to disease. So just send the dude with immunity, I guess.
All right. Okay. So first things first.
Any,
when
will look over his shoulder.
Well, no, I was going to say when you were telling them to, send for a cleric, and the human female, will look at Wynn as the orc is, crying out, "Plague." I'm sure there'll be a cleric come. You just wait and go nowhere.
Junie, now that she's done throwing up, is gonna sit down away from the mess that she's made and be like, "Well, if you're not letting us go anywhere, can you at least get me a drink of water?" And she's gonna kind of point to the puddle that she's just made.
All right. As Junie requests that, the human woman will look towards her and, "No, I'm afraid we're not going to come any further. Not now, at least. You just wait patiently.
That
Pray
is not cool.
to what are the
Anyone
gods."
want a game of tag?
She says, "Pray to whatever gods you might worship, that your fate is not his."
I'm just gonna look over at the guard and I'm just gonna be like, it was riding a horse. You might want to go find that. Because we don't know if this can infect animals as well. And I don't see it around here anywhere. So might that be a job for you or your nearest compatriots?
Roll persuasion again.
25.
Yeah. It's going to be a pretty tough sell this time around. Even with a 25, I got a natural 20 on my end. You probably you probably capped her. You know, I mean, you probably have a higher number,
Yeah.
but given
It's
the
like,
situation,
if I can't get her to go, I'll at least say like, hey, find someone and get them to find the horse while you look after us, like as an alternative.
right? And she, as you're saying this, she'll say to you, "You make an excellent point, but we're going to make sure you don't leave. We'll send someone for the horse as soon as possible." Now,
And just like brazenly, I go over and I start touching the body all over the place, and I don't care about scaring the shit out of her.
all right. So you go over and you begin examining the body. Now, it is much as I've already told you, and I don't want to go into too many details, but you can imagine what it might be like. You do, however, see, as I told Win earlier, from where it's fallen, there's actually a dagger that's kind of like jutting out of its back. It's kind of like wedged in between, a couple of ribs from the back.
Quick question.
Okay.
Can I get a quick idea of what race this person or creature was, or are they just too far gone?
They're pretty bad, but you could assume that it was probably a human male.
Human male?
Yeah. It doesn't have tusk or anything like that or pointy ears. You imagine it was probably a human male.
Is there... Okay, this is a very leading question. Are there any materials on the body that would indicate them being a scribe of some sort?
No, they don't appear to be a scribe.
Okay, cool. So it doesn't have to do with the middle fish thing with them snapping
Okay,
people and turning them into zombies.
No.
Because like my first thought, the reason for asking is because there's descriptions of 3 people that were kidnapped in middle
Right.
fish.
It doesn't
And I
seem
was
to
like,
meet any of those descriptions, so.
Cool. Just double checking.
What about the
Uh,
black spores that we went and got from Harwin? Did he not say that they had like some mad healing properties? Should we just eat mushroom?
No, you shouldn't just eat mushrooms because normally those have to be treated or transformed in some kind first.
Not like ones that we got to him because he'll have probably worked with them, and he'll have got these black spores that we went and got and probably made medicine.
Can we just like wait till I have my lay on hands back before we go poisoning ourselves on top of getting diseased, please?
No, I mean
Please.
for other people in the city sort of thing, because like you're not going to lay on the entirety of Black Sands, you know what I mean?
No, but there's clerics throughout the city that can heal.
Yeah. And if we are exceedingly lucky, you're patient 0. Or patient 1, I guess.
Yeah.
You definitely
Probably
know.
not the case.
Yeah, you definitely know you're not patient 0. So, if you're lucky, you're standing near patient 0.
Yep.
So,
sorry, just writing descriptions.
yeah. So essentially, you don't think it's any of the people that were described by Wen's father. Beyond the figure wearing a cloak and just sort of common clothes, and knowing that it's probably a human male, and the dagger that is sticking out of its back or back side, kind of. There's nothing really unusual.
Okay. I'm just gonna pull out the dagger, see if there's any identifying markings on it, or if it's just bog standard.
There are no like identifying markings, but it is a fine dagger. And as you're looking at it, you've seen kind of things like this before. It appears as though it's a silvered dagger.
Huh.
So it's finely crafted. Looks like a silvered dagger.
Anyone know why this thing would have been stabbed with a silver dagger?
Werewolf?
I'm just gonna look down at it and just gonna say, probably not.
No, but would Win know anything about the zombies needing to be killed with silver?
Well, that doesn't really sound familiar to Wen. She, obviously thinks about it, knowing that there is a silver dagger sticking out of it. But I'm assuming she probably knows that Sir Kay's longsword is not a silvered longsword.
True.
And that's what
Wait.
he used to fell the zombie. And it hasn't gotten back up.
Wait. Oh shit. Pardon my language.
Get stopped
Kay immediately looks a little bit panicked because something comes over his head. And I'm immediately going to go to the guard. I'm going to stop like 5 feet away from her because she doesn't know I'm immune to disease. And I'm just going to say, you need to stop looking for other people like this right now, because that dagger was most likely put in its back to make it a ticking time bomb and sent through the city.
All right. And as you do that, again, I can tell you, when you approach, they both have their swords out and, begin telling you to stop, and then you do a few feet away. And they probably back up a little bit as you do that. And as you say this, their eyes, already wide, grow wider. Again, we'll do what we can when we can. But you're staying here for now. And by this point, the half-orc is, called, plague and, things like that, and has called for help. And you will see kind of like a smaller contingent of guard arrive, as the half-orc walks away. The woman stays there, weapon trained on you all. And, obviously kind of like reveals what he knows, and people just begin kind of like backing away from him, as he's been here. And, you hear, one of them, kind of like scream out, "Send for a cleric!"
I'm just like standing there, kind of tapping my foot with my arms folded, waiting for one of them to actually come back and talk to me for a second, just looking very impatient. Right. I'm putting on my best, like, pissed off noble look.
Right. And none of them will come anywhere close to you. But after a matter of minutes, you all will wait there, I'm assuming, right? No one tries to leave, correct?
No.
Okay. All right, so you'll probably be there 15, 20 minutes. And you'll see the guard that kind of like, ran away as they said, "Send for a cleric," or "Go get a cleric." One of them will return, and you'll see a cloaked figure carrying a staff, using it to walk. The cloak is black, and as it gets closer, you see kind of like that white sort of bird, kind of like skull type mask, as this plague doctor begins approaching your group, away from the guards, closer to you. And as it gets within a few feet from your group, you hear it say, "So we meet again."
Look who it is now.
What? What did you say, Lewis?
I said, look who it isn't.
What is going on here?
Basically, we had dinner, then I got bit. And I'm just going to show him my hand.
Alright. You put his hands out. As he's
I'm
this
going to
close.
point to the dead body on the floor as well.
Okay. As you point your hand out, or put your hand out for him to see, he'll take it in those kind of like greasy oiled gloves that I've described for you before. And as he's close to you again, once more you smell this very strong camphor, and lavender sort of scent just kind of like fills the area. You don't see his face as he's wearing this mask, but you recognize the voice for sure, and you definitely recognize the scent kind of like wafting off of him. And then when you put your hand out, he just kind of like pokes it, and as he pokes it, you just get kind of like this shock of pain throughout your body. And as you look at it, though this has only been a few moments, you can tell, as you said, it is festering already. And when he pokes it, it just kind of like oozes. And I should also mention, when, as you're kind of like standing there, you begin to kind of like feel this irritation just kind of like at the corner of your mouth, and you touch your skin and it's very raw and kind of like moist and itchy.
Right.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So he's just poking at Wallace.
He's kind of like looking at his hand and like, poking at it, and
Toby's like, oh, for crying out loud. And he takes a pillowcase and he like ties it around the top of his arm as to like try to stop the spreading of it.
Okay, all right. So Toby does that to Wallace, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So I've just got like a pillowcase on my arm.
All right.
Yeah, it's like on the top to try to like, yeah.
It's all yellow and probably sticking to my hand.
All right, and then let me give a perception roll for Harvin real quick. That's pretty good. As you do that, Harwin kind of looks at Toby and just kind of like does this sort of raspy laugh, Your friend over there, I'm afraid you might need to put a tourniquet around her throat. And when you look back, you see that Wynn has this kind of like rash spreading kind of like on her face.
I'm actually going to look at Harwin, and I'm just going to say, how long does it usually take to come to fruition?
If this is what I think it is, 4 days tops, maybe sooner. Now, fortunately, I could heal you. Unfortunately, I don't know what this means for Black Sands. I've seen plagues before, and what they do.
Can't. Oh no, I probably can't do that. Never mind.
All right. I need to consult Harwin's sheet real quick. Anyone have any questions while I'm doing that?
Yeah,
I mean-
can you actually heal instead of looking at us like specimen?
Well, yeah, Toby's gonna get like a little like laugh back at him when he says that comment, and then go over to Wynn and take one of the leeches and be like,
That won't help. Keep it off me.
want a little buddy, right? Just right there.
No.
Weirdly
You
enough,
are-
that might actually be a genius idea if this wasn't spreading so quickly.
He's not trying to cure, he's just trying to help for a little bit.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
just for a bit of flavor stuff, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna start checking like the body again just to see if I missed anything. And I feel like this would be the point K kind of figures out he's immune to disease because he wouldn't know before this. Because like he would start touching the body and then just the boils would sort of try to move away from his hands almost.
Okay. All
And
right.
I'd
So
just be like, Alan, whenever you've finished that, can you tell me what the hell this is? And he's just like poking the cheek of the thing and watching everything try to move away from him. Like oil and water.
all right. So if you will give me a moment, And then he looks towards Wynn.
Yes, I will help you, but I don't want to waste my resources. So I have to be sure.
And with that, Wallace, he begins saying a prayer and kind of puts his gloved hand over your wound. And you feel kind of like an intense pain, kind of like a searing pain. And then you feel better, like the pain in your hand, that is. And when he removes his hand, the wound is still there. He's done nothing to heal that damage at all whatsoever. But the kind of like the festering nature of it has gone. The infection has subsided. It's no longer oozing. It's just, you've got kind of like your hand and there are these, deep kind of like teeth marks in it. Your hand still really smarts from where you're pretty sure, they cracked a bone biting into your hand. And it's turned purple and is swollen. But again, it's no longer festering.
Do I recognize this prayer that he is saying?
Give me an Arcana roll.
Yeah. Try to
That's a good question.
hone in on it.
Sure. Go ahead. Just give me an Arcana roll.
God, all the ones I want to do well in, I don't. 11.
Okay. All right. You probably don't recognize, the words that he's speaking or anything like that. But he repeats it shortly thereafter as he approaches Wynn and just kind of like, takes this greased, oily glove and just kind of like touches, kind of like on her cheek. And sort of the same thing, from where his hand is placed upon you as he's speaking these words, you feel this searing pain. And then it subsides. And the irritation that you had felt, the itching, the oozing nature of the festering sore on your face is gone. It still hurts because you got clocked in your mouth pretty hard, But you can tell that whatever this irritation was, this plague that was beginning to consume you, it's subsided. It's gone. He's released it from you.
Now, that should keep you from falling to this. Was anyone else injured, bitten, scratched, bled upon
No.
by this?
Oh, I got some blood on my gloves, but I just like tossed those on the ground on top of the body.
All right. He comes over to you as you're saying this.
What is it you needed?
Watch this, and I poke the thing's face and watch the boils like wiggle away from my finger.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's not quite that the boils wiggle away, but we'll say that they're, kind of like this ooze that's coming out of them, as you're beginning to kind of like touch, the boils don't move away, but this kind of like this, pus that's kind of like seeping from the wounds just kind of like, parts, around your fingers or what have you, as you're trying to touch it. And
I'm not exactly certain what that might be, but I can see you serve the judge. Perhaps he has blessed you and he has blessed you and protected you from this.
Kay looks significantly weirded out by that comment, and he's just kind of goes quiet and nods, and just puts his hand down. And then, like, I'm gonna look at Harwin and just say, "Do you by chance, could you by chance put in a good word to get the guards to let us go to sleep?"
I can speak with them. I'm not certain what might come of it, though. Obviously, this is something the city must take very seriously.
Right. Well, I feel like we've all had a long day, and this is a problem to be dealt with after some rest, and we we may want to be keeping an eye on this situation. And I just kind of gesture, like, I'm saying that more to the group than to Harwin, because, like, I
Sure.
get the feeling he knows we're going to be kind of poking around, and since we're stuck in the middle of this now, we're going to be a part of it anyway, so we might as well do our part.
All right. So, essentially, what happens is, again, you're there for quite a bit as these guards are here, and then, at some point, in kind of like the far distance, Sir Kay especially, you think you probably see kind of like a nobleman speaking with a guard. Again, at quite a distance from, you know, the corpse and your group and what have you. And I think right about now, we'll go ahead and take our break, and we'll pick up with the guard coming back. So take about a 5-minute break, and we'll return to this particular scene near the corpse. You all kind of being detained.
Just
Can-
before we.
Can the guard kindly come back with water for Junie?
I don't know that any of them are going to come close to you. So,
You guys
just
but as go ahead.
sorry, just before we break, I know the episode title for this one. It's Shadows of the City, Episode 5, Concrud Takes Black Sands.
Right. There you go. All right. So let's break on that. We'll be back in about 5 minutes or so.
Cool.
should be back. Audio okay?
Yep.
Excellent. So, before we took a break, your characters had all been kind of detained for several minutes after confronting this man who you'd seen approaching from the distance on a horse, and as he got closer, he fell off of his horse, and the horse drug him a little ways. His foot came loose, and his body lay there awkwardly, and you all approached it, and Wallace knelt down beside it, removed his cloak from his head, and noticed that there were all of these kind of like lesions all over his face, and Wallace immediately just kind of like poked one, and it burst, and pus began oozing down to the cobblestones. And then, shortly after that, you heard from the distance, "You there, stop," and looked to see two guards approaching from a distance away. Then you looked back and noticed this man, this corpse on the ground, open its eyes, milky white and dead, and it grabbed Wallace's hand, bit into it. Combat assumed from there. Started from there, and you began fighting it, and ultimately you felled it. But after you felled it, the guards approached, and Wynn had been looking at this thing and all of the lesions and boils on its body, and realized that these were the markings of something that she had heard of before, read about when she was studying medicine, studying to become a healer. And she determined that this was probably something, a plague known as zombie rot. Highly contagious, fairly fast-acting, liable to reanimate a corpse that dies from it. And then she told this to the guards, and the guards detained everyone, got nervous, backed away, began yelling, "Plague, close the gates," and this rang out throughout the city, and you began hearing bells shortly afterwards, and more guards arrived, and perhaps a nobleman, and someone sent for a cleric, and the cleric arrived, and it was a cleric you've already met before, Harwin, the bloodletter, and he approached you and examined your wounds and talked to you, and cast this spell upon the two of you who had sustained injuries, a bite and a scratch from this creature. And he's told you that he's healed you of this particular plague, but is quite uncertain as to what this means for the city of Black Sands. And I believe it was Sir Kay is asked that Harwin speak with the guards and, try to allow them to allow you to leave and rest. So Harwin's stepped away and approaches the group of guards, and as you see him approach the group of guards, they kind of back away from him. Not quite as far as they did from you, but they keep their distance, a healthy distance from him. And he speaks with them for a time. And then he returns and tells you,
"I've convinced them that I have healed you, because I am certain I have. Thanks be to the Archivist. You may return to wherever you were sheltered. But of course, no one is leaving this city. So, go. Rest. And be well."
Thank you, Harwin.
Lovely.
You are welcome.
Once Harwin's away, I'm just going to look at Wallace and I'm just going to say, this means we won't be leaving for the mall anytime soon.
It appear not. It appear we have more urgent matters in our hands. You need to be careful, and I know that's coming from me, but it's a lesson learned. We don't know who has this, we don't know who's being in contact with it, but this looks deliberate. Don't know about you, but I've had a pretty rubbish day. I'm gonna go to my bed.
That's probably a good idea.
All right. Anyone else have anything you want to say or do before you return to your beds for the evening?
Junie, still sitting on the street, is gonna ask somebody to come help her up.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
I'll
always
also
gonna help
help her
her.
up
Yeah.
with the bit in hand.
Try to get you some water ASAP.
Yeah.
And
I just imagine Toby, like Junie shifting away from the wall she was sitting against, and like Toby getting behind her and like boosting her up in a really awkward way.
it's like smashing on his face like earlier and like trying to
Like you know that exercise where two people have to like they're back to back and they have to stand up
Yeah.
with their backs together, like something like that.
Toby just gets a face full of elf butt.
yeah.
All right.
While they're all doing that, Kay's gonna do something stupid and try and go to the crowd of guards being talked to by the noble if he's still around.
All right. Well, the noble is definitely not around, but there are guards. Not as many. Many of them have dispersed. The two who initially got there are still there, plus a handful of others. As you approach, they do not have their weapons drawn or trained on you at all.
Yeah, I just kind of have my hand on the pommel, and I'm basically, just to kind of move this along, one, I'm going to ask who their commanding officer is so that we know who to talk to if, like, more stuff goes down, basically. Like, we know who to send information to. And then the second thing I'm going to ask is if any other, like, if they have word that any other people, like the one we fought, have been found in the city yet.
Okay.
Like, I'm basically trying to find out if this was just, like, one isolated incident thing, or if we've got like 20 of these guys have gone through the city already.
Understood. So you ask these questions, say these things to them, and the other group of guards don't really talk to you, but the half-orc and the woman will answer you, and when you ask who their commanding officer, the half-orc will look at you and say, "You could talk to Captain Garrigan if you need to."
Cool.
All right. And then as you're asking, are there any other instances of this, the woman will answer, "Not that I'm aware of. We've heard nothing else. With any luck, this is an isolated incident. I suppose we'll know more tomorrow. The city is big. This is only one ward of it."
I'm just very politely going to make a suggestion, and I'm just going to say, how am I going to say this? I'm going to look at her and I'm just going to say, I worked aboard a ship once. Disease tends to be a bit of a problem, especially diseased rats. They would like to bite, so make sure your men are tying down their clothing a bit, wearing gloves, covering their throats, any exposed bit of skin they can.
All right.
Under the helmets, too, because you never know when they might get a piece off if they're going like that one did.
All right, and as you say that, the woman, will just kind of be looking at you and nod. All right, thank you. Thank you. Well, Harwin has assured us that he has healed you. You should
Yes.
rest. Who knows what tomorrow brings?
That is the plan.
All right. So, any other questions for them?
Nope.
All right.
That's all I got.
They'll bid you good night. They kind of like remain there. As you're kind of walking away, you'll hear the woman, kind of like make a remark as you're going, and she just turns to the orc and like, "Oh, the horse," and you hear her begin talking to,
Great.
one of the other guards in the group, and then several of them quickly disperse and begin heading the direction that the horse trotted off. Now, all of you return to the Silver Pony. And as you do, there's a room full of people that very cautiously look at you as you enter. Now, you can tell that the shutters have been opened and that they were very much staring out into the streets as this happened.
I'm basically just gonna go like full guardsman, I guess, and just be like, "It's all right, everyone. We've been cleared by the clerics. We're able to go back to sleep. None of us are infected. They're dealing with the body right now. Please try to stay indoors for the evening and try to limit your time outside and in crowded spaces. Within the building should be fine, but in the marketplace and in the broader roads, do be careful where you're heading come the morning." And I'm just going to kind of nod, and before anyone can say anything, I'm ushering everyone upstairs.
All right. As you're going upstairs, now one thing that I didn't keep in mind as we were conducting combat or whatever, but Wallace, I'm sure, is sobered up a little bit, but is inebriated from dinner, and I didn't think about that. But as you're kind of like trying to usher people upstairs after saying all of these things, the kind of older gentleman that had kind of like engaged in the kind of like howling that Wallace initiated last time will, you know,
the guy I started barking at.
Yeah, the guy that you were barking at or was barking at you or whatever, he will, you know, kind of like speak up. Well, what do you mean infected and cleared, and what are you talking about?
It appears the man who fell outside had some sort of disease. We have no confirmation on what it is yet. However, the cleric of the archivist has looked us all over. We're completely fine. They're taking the body and dealing with it, and the guards will have more information come morning.
All right. At your mention of disease, you know, kind of like this murmur will ring out across the Silver Pony, and you'll hear, you know, at first kind of like a lower plague. It's true. And this kind of like grows as there's a panic, you know, as they heard the guardsmen saying this, and you've pretty much confirmed it.
As this like murmur starts to build, I'm gonna use my dancing lights, but I'm actually gonna have them go off kind of underneath my skin so that I glow for a quick second and just like pulse and get everybody's attention and get them to quiet down. And I'm just gonna go like kind of orator's tone, stand up a bit straighter. I'm just going to say, "While I have confirmed this news, there's no need to fear anything yet. The guards have it well under control, and adding to the panic will not do anyone any good. All of you keep your wits about you and you'll be fine. And stay indoors as much as you can. The city will get through this, it has before."
All right, as you're kind of trying to have this sort of commanding presence, this, you know, assuring kind of authority, why don't you give me a persuasion roll?
Cool. Yeah. That's not too bad. It's 17.
All right. So, as you're saying this, a large portion of the people in here do kind of quiet down, but there's a distinct area that, you know, the murmur only grows louder, you know, and you hear, you know, kind of like wails from people, you know, as they're fearing. You know, these aren't people with nothing to lose. These are all people of means, and, you know, this could be, you know, if not disastrous for their health, certainly disastrous for their livelihoods or what have you, you know. So, again, you seem to reassure some amount of people in here, but others only grow more panicked.
Damn it, I wish I still had spell slots left. I have calm emotions. Yeah, I'm basically after that, when I notice that not everybody's calming down the way I'd like, I'm gonna go to, oh God, I can't remember the server's name. It's been a week. Uh, I'm gonna go to the server that very clearly doesn't like me,
Uh-huh.
and I'm just going to I don't even care if another server's there, specifically talking to them, and I'm basically gonna be like, all right, what would it take to get all of those people in there a round of drinks and to get the bards playing again? They need something to distract them. Keep them calm, keep them fed, keep them comfortable. At least until morning.
I suppose I could put it on your tab, sir.
Do it.
I assume you're still good for it. And you can
I just kind of smirk and I say, well, if I wasn't, I wouldn't be asking.
All right. Then you see him kind of like walk away and begin talking to his servers, and then, not long after that, music will begin playing, as a kind of small, band of chamber musicians, are in here, and they kind of try to begin resuming some semblance of normalcy, in spite of what's going on.
There's 1,000 gold out of the group fund.
All right. So, you all return to your rooms. Do you return individually? Do you meet? Do you talk? Do you do anything else prior to going to your rooms and retiring for the evening?
Well, I wanted everyone to meet up real quick.
Gotcha.
And tell everybody the information. That's about it for me.
Okay.
Great. A god known as the Corpse Eater. That's not bad at all.
Nope, this is fine.
All right. So, Toby mentions to everyone that they want to speak to the party, and then relays this information that I relayed to Kristen earlier, not to go over everything, but essentially plague has hit the Black Sands once before, and it was related to this god known as the Dead Eater, the Great Unfather, Okulumaitu. It's an older god, was once worshipped throughout the land, but eventually was replaced by the current pantheon of gods. Kind of all but forgotten. So, you all now know that. You know that once upon a time, the adherents to this religion used to feed corpses to the maw, the ocean, the sea, off the coast. And that a plague hit once. There were hundreds and thousands of lives lost, and they were all sent out to sea, but all washed back ashore, only worsening the plague. It wasn't long after that Akulumaitu was abandoned in worship. And that's essentially what Toby relays to everyone.
Yeah, when Wallace goes to his room, he's going to pray to Niam the Untold, ask for guidance. Can I make a religion check for that? I don't know, to see if I can reach out to him or whatever.
I mean, mechanically, no. Do you have any spells that might help with something like that?
Even if I just say a prayer and hope that he hears it,
okay.
I will do that. Just kind of praying for courage and, I don't know, an idea, just something to happen.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, before he, goes to bed for the evening, Wallace, who's already this devout adherent to Neon the Untold, makes a plea, makes a prayer. You can give me a religion roll on it, as
13.
13. Okay. So you begin praying in the ways that are inherent to Neum the Untold Wood, and you're sure you say all the right words. I wouldn't say you're panicked. Maybe you are panicked. I'm not sure, but I'm
Oh
sure.
no, Wallace is 100% totally unnerved. He's woken up, been stabbed in a library, contracted and been cured of the plague, and yeah, he's not doing too good right now.
Okay. All right. So
Had good donuts.
That is about the only decent thing.
Silver
that's
lining.
happened today.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah.
Toby's also gonna ask if he can hold on to the music box for a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
Cool.
If it's cool, I'll leave it in the bag of holding, but yeah, you have it.
I mean,
Just
like, he wants to take it out and, like, have it by his side throughout the night.
Oh, yeah, no, I just mean, like, I'm leaving it written down in the bag of holding, so we
Oh,
really
okay.
have it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So Wallace says his prayer before leaving Sir Kay. Toby requests the music box that you found last time. Sir Kay hands it over. All right. Now I'm just going to go quickly one by one, much like we did last time. And I'm not looking for a lot of information, but I just want to know if there's anything you wanted to accomplish, much like we just did with Wallace. Wallace retires to his room, says a prayer to Neum the Untold, makes a plea. He's unnerved, he's panicked, he's worried about what all this means, perhaps. He's had conversation with Sir Kay, thinking that this might be aimed towards the party, or specifically him. Sir Kay trying to allay those fears by saying he believes it's someone just trying to mess with the city and not particularly them. But Wallace is not so certain of that. Now, Jess, anything in particular Wynn would be doing as she retires?
I think she would be going through her belongings, her herbalism kit, searching her mind, just trying to think of what she should stock up with with what they seem to be dealing with now.
Okay. All right, so just trying to make sure that she's prepared for things like the plague, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then. Shondell.
Junie is as unnerved and I guess scared. I feel Junie would actually be scared with everything that's happening, but she's just weak right now. She just wants to go to bed from throwing up.
All right.
She's got a really bad headache.
All right. So she's a bit exhausted, and also scared, and
she will before she goes to bed though. She will make a point to kind of write down some stuff like events of the day, almost like a journal entry. She's kind of started doing that recently, so just like some points, mainly everything that happened and highlights of what Toby had told the group.
Okay, all right. So she makes her journal entry and then lays down and retires for the evening. She does so feeling depleted, scared. Her throat burns significantly from retching multiple times earlier. Horrible taste in her mouth as she falls asleep. Now, Eric, what about Sir Kay?
He goes into his room, kind of like just unbelts the longsword, leans it up against, like, by the bed, basically against the nightstand, sits down on the bed, kind of pulls the book into his lap and looks at, like, the emblem of the judge embossed on the front of it, and just sort of stares at it with his arms limp and just says, "What else are you going to do to me? If you want me here to do something about this, damn well better give me the tools to do it." And then he just sets the book on the nightstand and goes to sleep.
Okay. All right. So, in contrast to Wallace, who is devoutly praying in his room, Sir Kay makes this plea, but it's more of a challenge to his own god. All right. Kristen, what about Toby? You've retired to your room. You've taken the music box from Sir Kay now. As I've described this before, and just to make sure we have a clear idea, it's kind of a box about this big, feels much bigger to Toby, who's much smaller than me. It's made of oak, a highly lacquered oak, and it's banded with gold. And within the wood has been carved all of these sort of intricate designs that aren't representative of anything. They're just decorative. And what does he do?
Well, before that, yeah, he remembers that, like, maybe he should get a little something more for Junie's throat. So he just goes down and, like, orders 2 cups of tea, like one for him and one for her.
Okay.
So, yeah, it probably happens before, she completely settles in. So, like, with his tea, he's just gonna sit in the middle of the floor with this box. First he wants to detect magic on it,
Okay.
and then we'll probably, like, look for maybe anything that's, like, not quite taking it apart, but fiddling around with, like, how it's constructed.
Okay. All right. Give me just a second, because I'm sure you're going to ask a question, and I need to know.
Suddenly just realized that Kay prays to his god like he's talking at him from across a bar.
Right. All right. So Toby begins kind of like examining the box. And then he sits it down, he has his tea, and he casts Detect Magic. And when he detects magic upon it, it does glow with magic. This is constructed. Now, this is what I was looking up. You can tell the type of magic, right? With Detect Magic.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
It's imbued with some sort of enchantments, though you can't quite tell what they are.
Okay. Is just the whole boxes glowing?
Yes. Right now, it's just
Okay.
closed on the floor in front of you as you've cast
Right.
this spell.
Yeah, and as he, like, is kind of he's always looking for, like, little secret, like, compartments, or just how it's constructed without, like, taking it apart. He probably wants to, but sensing that the whole thing is magical, he's just gonna, like, open it up and see if there's, like, if there's felt, if it, like, lifts up in a certain corner, or just kind of, like, cautiously fiddle around with it.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, because of being a gnome, you have some sort of special thing with, like, devices and stuff like that. Is that correct? Like you have some sort of you have some.
Sorry, I was
It's
breaking
okay.
up.
I believe you have some sort of racial feature with kind of like devices. Is that correct?
Well, I'm a tinker, so
Okay.
I have, like, tinker's tools and that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, but don't you have, like, bonuses on checks when trying to, like?
Like investigation, proficient with that.
Okay, all right. In that
I
case,
don't know.
give me. It's okay. Give me just about 15, 30 seconds, something like that, to see if I can pull up what I'm thinking about.
Toby's like trying to shake it a little bit.
Right. Where? There we go. All right. Now, what kind of gnome is Toby?
He's a rock gnome.
Yeah, so the Artificer's Lore is what I was thinking about. You
Yeah,
make an intelligence history check related to like magical items, alchemical objects, technological devices, and stuff like that. So why don't you go ahead and give me a history check?
Ray has advantage.
You had twice.
Yeah.
You had twice your proficiency bonus.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. History. Every time.
What you got?
Ugh. Sorry. Where's my sheet? History. 11.
11. Okay. All right. So, before he opens this up, he begins kind of like examining the outside of it. He can tell that whoever constructed this did a remarkable job at it. He's not getting a whole lot from it. I mean, he can definitely see how he would take it apart if he wanted to. He at least picks up enough on that. And just kind of like from examining it from the outside again, he's got an idea of how it's constructed, but beyond that, he doesn't really have many clues about it. So I do believe you told me you open it up to kind of like look and see, to examine the inside as well, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So he opens it up and he begins playing a tune.
Mm-hmm. That sounded familiar to him. Oh, is this the tunage?
Yeah. And as it's playing this song, he's got the box open, and there's this sort of like scarlet, silken, pillowed interior to the box. And that kind of like lines the bottom of it and the sides of it. And in the center of the bottom of it is this kind of like ivory dancer. It's a young woman in a dress, and then as this song is going, it just kind of like slowly spins kind of like in time to the music. And as he's looking at the box, the top of it is kind of like on the inside is just like this stilled mirror. And for as long as it's open, this song just keeps, or this tune, this melody, whatever, just keeps repeating as the thing spins. He can't really quite see how it might be powered at all. Like I said, about the most that Toby got from, examining it is knowing that it's magic, and he thinks he could probably disassemble it if he wanted to. But that's about it.
Very tempted. But kind of frustrated at the same time. And just kind of realizing he's got a little challenge on his hands. So he's going to close the music box and finish his tea, and then kind of sleep with it. Sleep with the music box.
Okay. All right. Now let's pause on that and just kind of like make note of Junie, as you were kind of like laying down to sleep, and like I said, you just had this horrible taste in your mouth, this burn in the back of your throat. There's a knock at the door, and you go to your door and you find Toby there, who's brought you a cup of tea.
Yes. I'm gonna say, being that it's right before I go to sleep, I'm gonna say that I was writing when he knocked, and I'm gonna reach out for the tea, not really saying anything, and then be like, because like I don't really want to talk. I'm gonna like look at Toby and like look kind of inside my room, and then being like kind of question, like emotionally question, did you want to come in? Like, I don't really want you to come in, but I'll offer it because I'm nice type deal.
He's gonna be like just hand motion to you. Yeah.
So all that happens before the box, and then that's when Toby will return to his room and begin examining the box, and then he lays down for bed and just kind of like sleeps with the box next to him. Now, throughout the night, You rest soundly. But Toby, once more, you find yourself kind of floating in that familiar void, that darkness. And you hear this voice that you've heard before. Sounds like it cuts through a static. The whirring. Twinging sort of metal noise. As the voice says, in whispered, kind of like multiple whispers all at once, coming together, coalescing to make a coherent thought. They've forgotten. Remind them. And that's all.
Yikes.
All right. The rest of the night, Toby sleeps soundly. He recalls the next morning upon waking this dream that he had. Recalls it vividly. Recalls having heard similar things before. And you all wake. What do you do?
I'd like to wake up maybe about 20-ish minutes before the rest of the party. I am going to go out, go for like a walk, basically down a couple blocks and back for those 20 minutes. And, well, I'm going to go like out of sight of the tavern, down an alley, take 10 minutes to cast Find Steed and summon a Mastiff. But instead of a Mastiff, it's going to be like a fairly large, basically like white and gray German Shepherd.
Okay. All right.
And I can give it telepathic commands, so I'm basically just going to look at it and say, well, ask it, because I'm going to be nice. I'm just going to say, you're a stray. I've just found you. We're taking you in. Please be nice to Wallace. He's had a rough day, and he just needs something. And I'm basically just going to telepathically beg the animal, because I figure it's probably just Arlen's spirit again, because like Find Steed functions by summoning like a celestial or a fey spirit. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing I got cursed with the same one again. And I'm just going to be like begging it to just be cool to Wallace and the rest of the party. And that's it.
All right. So, and I was going to say as much. I believe, it's kind of like with the Find Familiar or whatever, you sort of summon back the same kind of entity. You've just chosen a different form for it, this time. Yeah. And, as it's there near you and you're making this plea to you, now it can't communicate back, right? You can just kind of like communicate telepathically with it. Is that correct?
Its intelligence becomes 6 and it gains the ability to understand one language of your choice that you speak. Alright. Oh, while your steed is within 1 mile of you, you can communicate with each other telepathically. So
Okay.
I would assume I don't get like language from it, but I would probably get like fairly detailed images and like emotions and thoughts from it, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, essentially, as you communicate this to it, it approaches, as you've summoned it, as this kind of large dog, specifically kind of a German Shepherd, sort of breed, something like that, almost wolf-like, a little bigger than your average German Shepherd. And you kind of like, say that to it, and, as you do it, it sort of like cocks its head to the side and then just sort of like, hangs it, and then, gets up and begins following you,
Okay,
So
that's good enough.
you get the idea that, as usually with Arlen, it accompanies you, but is not quite pleased with, your request,
And it's
Probably even lesser so than when it was actually your steed, so.
Yeah. At its disappointed look, I'm just going to be like, we're going to work on us later. right now I'm just worried about the rest of them, so. And I just like give it a thumbs up randomly to keep walking.
All right.
And I'm gonna be like waiting for everyone like at breakfast. I'm gonna have food brought to the table by the time everyone comes down, and the dog is just gonna be like sitting next to me, and I'll probably be feeding it bacon just to try and bribe it into liking me.
All right. Now, you walk in, and as you go in, first of all, I should tell you, when you went out into the streets of Black Sands, it's earlier in the morning, but you've been here earlier in the morning before, and you've noticed the kind of bustle of the city streets as people are preparing for their days, setting up, shops and carts and things like that. And there is quite none of that this morning. It is desolate and deserted, and no one is walking around that you see. And when you came down through the Silver Pony, there was only the kind of maitre d' figure there that you can't quite recall his name at the moment, and just barely acknowledged you as you were leaving. But when you return with the dog, he looks at you and, "You cannot bring that beast in here."
Stop me, and I just go for breakfast. And I just have it make sure it sits right next to me, and I'm just like, put on your best intimidating face in my head, and enjoy the bacon. And I like get a side plate of bacon brought over for it, and I just nudge it over to it, and just sort of sit there satisfied.
All right. So as you do that and you communicate to it, Arlen just turns to the maitre d' and just kind of like does this low growl, and as you say "stop me" combined with that, Arlen just backs away and says, not Arlen, the maitre d' just backs away and says no more, and food is served to you. Not long after, I don't know what order everyone comes down, but everyone will eventually find themselves in the tavern portion of the
What does that ring do? I put that ring with the animals on it, so
I put
after
the other one on.
Okay. Give me a second and I will tell both of you. All right. Oh, come on. There we go. All right, Lewis. It is a ring of animal influence. So if you want to make note of this, I'll tell you the things that it can do.
Okay.
It has 3 charges. It regains 1d3 charges at dawn. While wearing this ring, you can use an action to expend one of its charges to cast one of the following spells. You may cast Animal Friendship. The save on Animal Friendship is a DC 13. You may also cast Fear. The save, likewise, is a DC 13, but you can only target beasts that have an intelligence of 3 or lower. And then finally, you can cast Speak with Animals.
I'm going to speak to this dog. I'm a fish in every animal. Even all the plague-infested rats and that.
Uh-huh. Alright, so did you get all that?
I just realized something really funny. The spells that only work on beasts won't work on the dog. It's a celestial.
Oh, no, I can't even talk to the dog.
I think you can still speak with animals. Because I don't think speak with animals has a beast restriction. But like the other ones, like
We'll
animal
look it up
influence
and
and
make
stuff.
sure in just a minute. Yeah, because I'm not sure. We'll
I'm
look
gonna
that
look
up.
up speak with animals, and then I'm gonna be so gutted. I'm gonna know that he's a well.
All right, now let's move. You look up speak with animals while I'm moving on to the next ring. And then, quite simply, the next ring is a ring of feather falling.
Oh, yeah. I might keep that one. I have a habit of jumping out of tall buildings.
It totally has a beast restriction on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think it would really work with Arlen. So.
Oh well, it was a nice thought.
Yeah. So, anyway, Sergey or Eric, while wearing this ring, you descend 60 feet per round and take no damage from falling.
If it's cool, y'all, I'm gonna hang on to that one. I feel like with the way I go, I'm most likely to need it.
Yeah. And just so you know, your ring does require attunement. Like you have to actually attune to it. Which you did. There are no stipulations on that particular attunement. And then the Ring of Animal Influence, Lewis, does not require attunement. You can just wear it. You've just spent enough time with it, kind of like being able to figure out sort of what it does. All right?
Alright.
Now.
I'm gonna come down the stairs, and upon seeing this white fluffy dog, I'm gonna get super excited because I got a ring last night that allows me to speak to animals. And I'm just gonna look at Kay and then like look at the dog and then look back at Kay and then look at the dog. And I'm gonna go up to it and I'm gonna cast speak with animals on it.
All right.
And then it's not gonna work, and you're gonna see Wallace like in the mood, and you know he's woke up and he's quite buzzing. He saw this, and he's like, "Hello, boy," and then obviously the thing's just gonna kind of look at him and not speak back, and he's gonna be like, "Why isn't it working? Why won't?"
I'm just gonna look at him and just say, well, I mean, its mouth is full, and I just pass it another piece of bacon to try and take it.
Okay, I'll wait till he finishes bacon. I'm gonna be like, "Hey, boy,"
All right.
and then it's not gonna hang it, and you're just gonna be like, "Yeah."
Yeah, so you
And
cut
you're
out
just
a
gonna
whole
leave it
lot
on
during
the
that.
table.
You cut out a whole lot during that, but the gist I got was, you were excited. You come down, you see this, large dog. Besides Sarkay, and Wallace has really been wanting an animal companion. And he gets very excited now, knowing that he has this ring and knowing the qualities of the ring and knowing that he can very much talk to animals, which is something he's intensely interested in. And he sees this dog and just almost immediately blows through this one charge. Make note of that. You've used one charge of your 3, so deduct that. And you use it, you cast this spell, and as you're like, "Hey, boy," and you continue trying to talk with it, it just sort of does the same thing. Turns its head to the side, and you hear it kind of like a sort of low little whimper from it. And then Serkay, you just get the impression of being extremely confused from Arlen,
Right.
with him not really knowing what to do. And that's where you chime in with well, he's eating bacon right now.
Retroactively, Wallace, what language were you speaking to the dog in? Common?
Yeah.
I just look at you and say, "Oh, right. Sorry. When I found him this morning, he wasn't really responding to common very well, and you might want to try Dwarvish, because I can make it understand what language I speak." And
I'm
ask.
gonna insight checks, okay?
What part of that sentence are you insight checking?
The part where it wasn't understanding common.
I mean, when I cast the spell, I can make it only understand one of my languages, so I would have picked Dwarvish so that Wallace feels special. So, I think that would be persuasion instead of deception.
It's still I still wouldn't be able to work though because if a scale only works on like beasts. It does say it's a restriction on it,
Oh, I know
despite the
that,
fact that
but like I'm saying Dwarvish so that it basically like will understand your commands in Dwarvish as like one of the only other people in the party that speaks it. So like I specifically told it to understand Dwarvish so that you feel special.
okay. I'm still gonna do it because he's still a bit fishy. How you're like feeding this dog bacon and it can't talk to him, and all of a sudden this white fluffy German Shepherd. And that's 24. But obviously you'd be telling the truth.
I mean, yeah, that's like an 18 on my end for persuasion or deception because they're the same score. So it does understand Dwarvish, it just can't speak it back to you.
Hmm. I would still kind of take the ring off and put it down. Just be like, give it to Win when she comes down for food. And I'm gonna pat the dog behind its ears and then go and get food myself.
All right, so you do that, and as you're kind of like, did you speak to it in Dwarvish at all?
I would have said like, alright to it. I don't know what the dwarven equivalent of alright is.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so just as you pet it, it begins, wagging its tail, and appears to be happy, at you, petting it. So,
He's pretty gutted he can't speak to it, but he's like, it's a dog. Win will probably have more use of this than me, and puts the ring down.
Okay.
Importantly, it's a pet I can resummon when it dies to a fireball.
All right. So there's that, and I don't know. I mean, I know you were a little bit skeptical. I would almost want to give you kind of like an intelligence roll. So if you give me an intelligence roll,
Me,
yes,
that is 18.
18. Okay, all right. I mean, I would almost say, you've spoken with Sir Kay on numerous occasions and about getting an animal, and on each of those occasions, Sir Kay has told you,
Yeah.
he's told you, I can summon a dog. I can get us a dog, and he's made the plea to, we don't need a pet because the pet will just die. And I believe he's just as much told you, I can summon a big dog, and if it dies, I can bring it back. And I don't think Wallace would have forgotten that. It's just awfully convenient that there's a dog with Sir Kay here. You were just quite literally having this conversation yesterday. In fact, you had this conversation multiple times yesterday. So.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of noted it. He appreciates the gesture, but again, he's taken the ring off and put it down and just been like, give that to Win.
While he's gone, I'm just gonna like telepathically talk to Arlen, and I'm just gonna be like, make sure Wallace is never alone. And if anything goes wrong, you alert me immediately. So, because I have a telepathic bond to him as long as it's within a mile.
Right.
So I basically have a permanent alert spell on Wallace now, as long as the dog lives.
Okay. All right. Well, you can tell that that the dog Arlen understands and agrees. So it kind of communicates that much through you to you. Now, everyone else is down there. As you're gathered around for breakfast, is there anything you want to say to one another, planned for the day? You're there with one another.
Probably. We should talk about a few. After I don't know whatever I've had for breakfast, I'll kind of come over and be like, so yeah, yesterday.
Yep.
We're not going. Yeah.
That was the deal.
I've had better days, to be honest with you. We now have quite a situation on our hands, obviously. I've asked you all for your help, but we've now got a bit of a situation here. Um, and the quicker that we deal with this, the quicker we can deal with, all the other. But to be honest, I am pretty unnerved about what happened last night. Don't really know what to make of it. I literally got stabbed in the morning in a library, contracted the plague, got cured of said plague, and yeah, got drunk as well.
Killed
This
an
is,
assassin.
yeah, killed an assassin, got put to sleep, walked out of a burning building, go nuts. This is quite a lot happened yesterday. Um, we should probably, try and help out here. It's not like we're going to be able to leave unless you want to leave and we can try find a way out.
We should at least see if it's spread at all since last night.
That and we need to let Wynn's parents know.
That's a,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's kind of a lot of things that we need to do.
Yeah.
One that's priority of yours, given that that happened mere minutes after. Um, I don't know. This
After my
is
parents left, yeah.
Oh, also, we have a ridiculous amount of money at this point.
yeah,
Don't,
yeah.
just, it's best if you don't ask where I got this money. Plausible deniability is probably best. But we have a ridiculous amount of money. So, I'm going to recommend we
Let's
keep it
spend
in
it.
the bag. No. I'm going to recommend we keep it in the bag instead of splitting it. We can keep a group fund as well as our own. It makes sure that not all of our money is in one place. Only most of it is. We can also all have our own reserves, but it keeps us from having to count it and split it every day as well. Every time we find something.
Okay. I mean, I'm not one to judge, for like finding money, but do you know whose it is? We're not gonna have some mad group or anyone be annoyed that that's missing. Like, you're sure whoever's at war gonna want it.
Kay sips his tea quietly.
Great. If I get stabbed in any public places, I am blaming you. I am not going to be held accountable for it if shit hits the fan with that. But I will happily spend some of that money if we're going to do that. And I would suggest that we maybe start off at, don't know, the local pet shop, or maybe we should look to get a cart, perhaps. Maybe some enchanted stuff.
I I agree. We need to find a shop. Potions to start with. Maybe a couple of magic items if we can afford them. Uh, we don't need another pet. You have a dog. Um, also,
Nugget won't even speak to me. By the way, when there's a ring for you somewhere on the table, hopefully no one picked it up.
What? A ring?
Yeah, I left you a ring. You can like talk to animals and stuff. It's pretty cool. Well, not all animals apparently. Not white fluffy German shepherds, but anyway, it's alright. It's fine. But you can talk to
uh,
most animals, I guess.
I'm just gonna look at Win and just say, yes, it's buried somewhere in the sugar bowl for you. Um,
Okay.
All right. So
I
does
figured, you'd have more use of it than I would. Um, Happy birthday.
Uh, thanks, I guess?
all right. So does Win reach over for this sugar bowl?
Yeah.
Right, so as she kind of like digs around within there, I mean, she feels the granules of sugar, but also, she will find, something kind of like solid and hard within there, and she pulls it out and she sees this either kind of like copper or brass type ring, or bronze possibly. She's not really sure what metal it is, but there are just all of these animals around it, and I'm sure probably a little more conversation goes on after she gets it, but essentially, Wallace will tell her, much like I've told you, that you can, it has, these 3 charges. Not that it's worded quite like that, but, you can cast all of those same spells. Just so you know, in case you use it, it is already down 1 charge from the 3. So, one of those has already been cast for the day. It recharges 1d3 at dawn. So, anyway, Wynn does not need to attune to this. Wallace explained to her basically how it works, And, all right. So you now have a ring of animal influence. You can note that on your sheet. Okay. Now, I will say to you, Kristen, Toby slept the night with this box. And in the morning, he's spent time with it. He can't really tell any qualities about the box, but he knows that he could attune to it.
Yeah, I thought maybe if I spent some time or couple nights continuing to look at it or investigate it further, that would help. But he's gonna say to everybody else, speaking of enchanted items, and he just puts it up and shakes it again to see if he can hear anything. But he's like, yeah, this box is really enchanted.
All right.
Maybe so.
Yeah, so Toby, you know that Toby took the box for the evening, spent some time with it, and he basically confirms for everyone that it is a magical item of some sort. Tells you that it's really enchanted, in fact.
Huh. Well,
I missed the last part, but it's what?
Oh, I just said that you told them that it's really enchanted, is all.
Oh, okay. I thought there was something after.
Yeah.
Well, that's all yours if you want to keep it, Toby. I have no interest in it, and I will admit, I still have this ring, and I just sort of showed off, and I think I might be the best suited for it. It keeps me from dying from falling. That's basically it. If anyone wants it, you're welcome to borrow it, but for now, as I'm the only person who's jumping out of buildings, I think it might be best if I hang on to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So we've heard from...
Strongly agrees.
I love how there's no argument over this.
Just in unison. Yes.
Twice is a pattern, 3 times the habit.
Yeah. All right, so we've heard from basically everyone except for Junie. So what is Junie doing over there this morning as everyone is talking about these items that they've acquired? And,
she's just drinking more tea because her throat still hurts, which is why she's not really talking. She's very nonverbal in her communication.
all right.
Just drinking tea and eating breakfast, assuming we've ordered breakfast. But definitely drinking tea and water.
I just rolled a d4 to see who Arlen likes the most out of the party, not counting Kate, obviously. Rolled a 1, which was Judy. So now the dog doesn't even stick near Wallace the whole time. It just goes over and hangs out with her. I'm so sorry.
You know what? It's fine.
This gift has gone so horribly wrong.
Poppers love me. All the poppers.
Yeah, so this, large, fluffy, white, not Junie, German Shepherd.
You know what?
Oh no. This large, fluffy, white German Shepherd walks around to Junie and kind of like sits at her feet. Kind of like does that thing where, it puts its head on her feet, and just lays there on the ground.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Oh.
Minus
kidding,
the German,
by
minus the German Shepherd part. It's pretty much real life because my dog is right here at my feet, and he's a white fluffy dog.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
awesome.
Now, we don't have a lot of time left in the evening, so just kind of what I want you to do is sort of formulate a plan from where you want to go for next session. So if you could just role play a little bit, talk that out, kind of give me an idea of what you would be planning to try to do with this particular day. Keeping in mind, Eric, I've already told you as Sir Kay went outside, the town is dead right now.
Yep.
And you know this is probably by design, being that there is a threat of plague in the city. So, again, just kind of role play and sort of give me an idea of where you're heading for next session, what you're planning to do with this day.
I think we talked about going to Wynn's parents.
Yeah, you did talk about alerting Wynn's parents. You also talked about shops, but also, as I've kind of just mentioned to Eric, the town is quite dead right now. So, if that's what you've decided on, and that's your answer, then we will pick up next time with you all perhaps traveling to Middlefish to try to warn Wynn's parents.
If everyone's good with that.
I'd like to do 2 other things if we can get through the day without someone trying to kill us.
Yeah.
Not
I want to. Oh. Thanks.
Wallace? No, I'm kidding.
I want to see if we can get in for a chat with Captain Garrigan of the guards to see what's going on. And then I want to find the nearest graveyard and see if any graves have been dug up.
Yes.
Because that story with the god started with people, basically tossing, it started with people tossing bodies in an ocean and then bringing them back. And I'm assuming a lot of people haven't died lately, so they had to get the bodies from somewhere.
Let's go play in the graveyard.
This is a fantastic idea. We're all totally going to be perfectly fine.
This is fine.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so kind of what I've got here for right now is your tentative plan for your party next time is to warn Wynn's parents, number 1. Number 2, you want to speak with Captain Garrigan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then number 3, you want to find a graveyard to see if anyone's been dug up or anything like that, right?
Yes.
All right. Anyone else?
RJ, can you take a picture of that to-do list?
I wrote
I
it.
was like, I'm gonna have to do an art of that list or something.
Okay. All right. I'm sure that Eric's looks probably a lot more legible than mine does, so if he'll just snap a picture of the to-do list, that would
Love it.
Yeah.
I love how I didn't even put Wynn's parents first. I put find a magic shop first. And now I feel like
Yeah, well,
So do you have a little arrow, have to switch that around? Whoop.
Yeah. All right.
Nice.
Well, as I've mentioned off stream, we will not stream next Monday night. I'll need to take next Monday off, but we'll plan on returning August 19th. So not next week, but the week thereafter. Now, as usual, we'll just kind of go around and hit everyone and see if you have anything in particular you want to plug or say before we wind up closing down for the night. So we'll try to go with the order that we started with. So Jess, anything you want to say, plug before we go?
Not really. No, not this week.
Okie dokie. Lewis.
Yeah, not really either. Yeah, not really.
Okay. Shondell.
You can, just the usual, you can find me on Twitter and on Twitch at Tiny Valley. I won't be streaming this week because I have a major paper I need to finish so I can defend and get my diploma and get on with my life. But after this week, I will be streaming every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
All right. Kristen.
Cool. Clang, clang. You can find me on the Twitters at the IT Pirate Now. Find me on Roll for Lore, talking about monsters with Friendo. And I play on Sundays on Pro Starters channel at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which I play a big, beefy lady. And yeah, there's a lot of bombs going off right now, so we'll see how long I'll be playing her for.
All right. Eric.
Yeah, you can find me at Eldritch Crow on Twitter and Discord. Now that I'm back from Gen, I'm going to be, hopefully through the month of August, ramping up development on my setting building project on World Anvil. So expect to see a lot more coming out over there. Got a lot of plans in the works for that, and I'm very excited. So you can find that on World Anvil /w/ORAXIS. So,
Awesome. And as always, I'm RJ Cresswell. You can find me on Twitter at RJ_Cresswell, where I post about D&D, do giveaways, things like that. And then I do this stream, and I also do a stream on Thursday nights at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern. That is also set in the Tainted Lands. However, we're kind of like in a different part of the world. And that stream is called The Scourge of Antermore. So, I will not be streaming there this week or next week, though. I've got to take a couple of weeks off. But we will return with this stream on August 19th. I know a couple of people joined us in chat tonight, so I appreciate that. I'm sure we all appreciate that. And then I know a couple of people tend to check us out on YouTube, so we always appreciate it when you check out our shows over there as well. So, as usual, most importantly, thank you to all of you. Thanks for showing up tonight and playing, and we will come back on the 19th, and you have a to-do list of things that you will possibly do as the town is kind of quarantined from this particular plague, and we'll just see how things unfold from there. So, thank you all very much, and good night.
Good night.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.